Hello, welcome to another episode of the Indie Founder Podcast, the podcast about what's really like to bootstrap a company. My name is Tiago, I am your host and the full-time bootstrapper founder of PodSqueeze and a lot of other projects. In today's episode, I'm going to address a listener question, a very interesting question about how to launch a product, what's the best way, and I'm also going to speak about a small Twitter drama that I was involved in this weekend, so the past weekend. It's going to be a packed episode, but before we start, I wanna thank you because the number of downloads of this show is increasing every week, which is awesome. And I have only you to thank because you are the one showing up every week, listening to my words, and hopefully as well sharing this podcast with your friends, your indie maker friends, your family, everyone, your enemies, maybe. And of course, if you can, if you're listening to this on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts, whatever, leave a review. That would be awesome. So if you're listening on Spotify, it's very simple. You go up and you can just click on the 5 stars. That really helps boost the podcast. And I want to hear from you. And there's many ways for you to talk with me, give your feedback. If you have questions as well, leave your questions there. Is on Spotify, for instance, you can do that in every episode. You can now comment underneath, and that's really cool. Last episode, we even answered one of the questions of a listener that was posted through Spotify. Or if you're listening to this or watching on YouTube, leaving a comment, a like, and subscribing to the channel. That's awesome. Now, let's get started. And let's get started first with the listener question. It's coming from my friend Stephanie. And here is her question. Let's listen.
I'm now planning with a friend to dash out one project, one app after the other until hopefully one of them sticks or multiple stick. The only thing that we are kind of debating or are not agreeing about is how to do product validation. For instance, let's say we have one idea now that we want to start working on. Her approach would be to build 5 different landing pages, test them against each other, see which one performs best, use this one then to pay for marketing and Google Ads, have people download the app then through this website. And it seems to me like a lot of overhead for something that can be as well very simple and straightforward. So my question to you would be how you went about product validation, or did you really just have an idea, put it out there, not pay for marketing, not test different landing pages? So yeah, that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Stephanie, for the great question. Now, it's really interesting that she posted this question this week because is all around the 12 on 12. So this idea that to find some success, you need, especially at the beginning, you need to try multiple projects really fast, fail fast, ship fast, fail fast, until you find something that gets some traction. This was one technique that I really liked and one technique that I used to get the first success with PodSqueeze. But funny enough, I've been kind of changing a little bit my opinion on this, and this is as well somehow related to this like Twitter drama that I was inserted in this past weekend. But before we get to that, let's answer to Stephanie. Now, I believe that the goal when you first get a project running is to get feedback, relevant feedback from potential users. And what is feedback? What is the best feedback one can get? Well, is to get paying customers, people actually paying for it. So especially when you're first starting and you're sharing your projects with your mom, with your friends, with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever, they will be supportive, right? A lot of your friends, they don't want to make you upset. They prefer always avoiding confrontation. So they'll say, yeah, that's great product. I love it. But the reason why I don't really like this type of feedback is because it's just friendly feedback. But they might just be kind of, you know, sparing you, and they don't hurt you. The best way, the most brutal way to test your product is to put in front of actual potential customers and seeing if they buy it or not. So I really believe that before wasting time with a lot of features and beautiful UI, one should make an MVP. So it's something that basically already solves the problem. So you have a problem that you're solving, something that already somehow solves the problem. Doesn't need to be perfect, far from it. And you put it in front of as many people as you can. These days, it's very simple to do that. These days, building the product is not a problem, right? So, and I've been talking a lot about this. There's a lot of AI tools, a lot of automation tools, a lot of no-code tools that one can use to build a product quite fast. And I really believe that you can build your MVP in maybe 1 week, 2 weeks. I think more than 2 weeks is already too much. So if you have 2 full weeks to develop something, unless it's a really complex product, I think it's possible and you can actually do it. And you should point to do it as fast as possible. Now, the question is, what if I just create a landing page, right? So this is what her co-founder was thinking about. Let's just create a landing page and let's get some traffic to this landing page. Now, this approach is an approach that I've heard this approach multiple times. I've never loved it. And the reason is exactly what I just told you, right? So you can create a beautiful landing page, you can share it with the world. But if the landing page does not offer buying possibility, right? If this landing page does not solve the problem already a little bit and then asks the user for money in exchange for solving that problem, you're not really testing the product. You're not really testing the market. Sure, you can create a landing page and then you can have a waiting list, join a waiting list. But it's a proxy analytics, sure, but it can be deceiving for multiple ways, multiple reasons. First of all, you might create this landing page, you might bring people, and these people might actually click and leave their email there. But again, leaving their email there is free, right? So unless you have a paid waiting list, unless that, but a lot of people will not want to pay for something that they don't get right away. So it can also kind of be misleading in the opposite way, where you think people are not interested in your product, but they just are not interested in the promise of your product, right? So that's something to be aware of when you try this approach of just creating a landing page, especially these days, because it's so easy to create a product. I think it will be almost as fast as creating this landing page. Now, the second part of the question is, shall we just release it and get some traffic using ads, or using some more organic ways to get traffic, right? So I think this question needs to be split in two, right? The first that we just answered is, what do you prefer, landing page versus a full MVP? Again, I prefer the full MVP for the reason I just explained. Now, how to get traffic to that MVP, right? Or to that landing page. Stephanie's co-founder was thinking on paid ads. Now, myself, I've tried paid ads in many products and I was never able to get them to work. Really. And probably it's me. We are not very good at it. But in my experience, we just spend money and then get zero traffic, or we get some traffic, but it's really hard to get the traffic that we actually want, even though we are targeting the users that we want to get in our website. It's really hard to control, and I've had experiences where I would put a budget of $100 per day, and this $100 would be spent in an hour, and I would get zero traffic or a few people, but they would not even look at a website. So I don't know. In my opinion, unless you're really good at it, unless you know you have years of experience with ads and you know how to get the best ads for the least amount of spending, I prefer going the organic way. And what's the organic way? Doing a launch. Doing a launch using the tools that we have available. So I'm assuming that you don't have an audience, right? You don't have already either a newsletter, some presence on social media that you can simply share your product with. And by the way, this will get into the second part of this episode with all the drama. If you don't have this audience, then you need to go to a place where this audience already exists. And my recommendation is always Reddit. Go to Reddit. There's thousands or even millions of subreddits. You have a subreddit for every little niche in the world. The most weird ones and the most normal ones, all of them are there. So you'll probably find some of your potential clients, for sure. So do some research, find the subreddits where your potential clients hang out, and share the product there. And easily you'll get 100, 200 eyeballs into your product. I'm sure of that. So by doing this, you already get some traffic, some people into the website, and you know where that these people are coming from your niche. And then of course you need to have some analytics, and you see what they are doing in your website. You have like a little widget where people can chat with you. And yes, I believe that sometimes if you're like, if you release in the right time, it's not only the right product but also the right time, you might get some traction just from that, just from releasing on Reddit. Now, other ways to do this type of launch is using products like Product Hunt, which is exactly for that, to launch a new product. So you might be able to get some traffic there. Even though you don't have an audience, you have friends, you have family, you can ask them to share it with their friends, and you can ask for their feedback. And other ways that I'm just thinking, there's of course Hacker News. You can also use that to get some traffic, and or any other forum really that might be interesting for your niche. So what I always prefer, and again, this is my opinion, I believe that there are many recipes. There's no single path to entrepreneurship. And if someone tells you that you need to do things one way, they are probably wrong, because every situation is different, every market is different, every product is different, right? So in my opinion, what has worked for me is starting with an MVP, something very simple, but already solves the problem, and then doing a launch by sharing on these forums with friends and so on. And that will already bring traffic. And that should be sufficient for you to kind of see what's going on. Now, from then on, then you can start building your recurrent traffic sources. And there you'd go for SEO, you'd go for YouTube, you'd go maybe for paid ads if it pays out. Now, the issue with paid ads is you really need to have high margins and high conversion for the paid ads to actually make you money. So these are things that one should consider. Thank you, Stephanie. I hope this answers your question, and good luck with your projects. Now, let's get to the second part of this episode, the drama, the Twitter drama. And it all started with Levels.io, Peter Levels. So he said, and I will read this tweet, "I keep thinking of this term in my head because it's so good. Shotgun to sniper strategy. You want to start with a shotgun strategy where you try lots of ideas and launch lots of projects, MVPs, etc., and add the stripe button to everything. Then see what really gets traction, goes viral, makes money, and then what keeps making money over time, like months. Then you want a sniper and focus on that project to make it big. Now, this is very similar to the 12 on 12. This is what made Peter Levels famous. He decided to make one startup per month, and he did a few until he found Nomadlist, which was his kind of first big startup. And this was also an idea that was circling around 3 years ago when I first started, and I decided to do the same. I told João, back then we were still not co-founders, and I told him, hey, let's just build things, launch them, and if they don't have traction, if they don't get 1K, 2K MRR in the first month, we quit and we start another project. We kind of trash that project and start something new. And it worked. It worked for us. But since then, first of all, we've tried that with other projects since then. We've launched a lot of products. None of them had success. So I started to doubt a little bit this strategy. I started to feel that there was always something missing. So I decided to tweet back. And this is what I tweeted back to Peter's Levels. I think you are ignoring the distribution part. Both you and Mark have huge distribution pipeline and helps a lot to kickstart projects. I think that your takeoff runway is more relevant for project success than the shotgun approach. Oh boy, what did I say? I'm just seeing that this comment had 32,000 views, which is crazy. So Levels just said, yada yada, loser mindset. I did the same in 2014 with no followers. So he's basically saying that, but he had success once, and that what I'm doing is just I'm just complaining that this is the loser mindset. And this did not end here. Actually, not maybe a few hours after, another famous maker on Twitter, I don't want to butcher his name, but it's John or Yon Yongfook, which is the founder of Banner Bear, quite famous API for videos and so on. He said, people who cry, but you have distribution at people like Levels must think these guys were just born with 5,000 followers. 500,000 followers, rather. Newsflash, at some point they were at 0 followers and then did enough interesting shit that people wanted to follow. Tired of these responses. And he mentioned my tweet, the tweet that I just read to you. Now, this started a whole conversation. I answered back and we we're just discussing this. And first of all, I don't really understand why people got so upset with this. Why people thought that I was complaining. I was not complaining at all. I was just saying because I love entrepreneurship. I love finding the recipe, even though I know there's no full recipe, but I love to find paths and ways to see how entrepreneurship actually work. I think it should be kind of, I want to, even though I know and I keep saying that there's no one right way, I keep also trying to find all the right ways. I'll really control, master the craft, understand for each scenario, for each niche, what works and what doesn't. So I tweeted that we in that idea. The idea was not to trash Levels, not to diminish his values, or his the things that he accomplished, but rather to just say, hey, there's probably something here missing, which is the distribution part. Now, I do believe that the problem with Twitter these days, and not Twitter, a lot of social media, is that the algorithm prefers simple ideas that bring a lot of engagement. And normally the ideas that bring a lot of engagement are controversial posts that bring either love, a lot of love, or a lot of hate. That's what you want. You want really strong emotions. And I believe that this is bad. This is bad because it makes us more polarized. It makes us want to see the good or the bad in people, But the extremes, right? It's really hard. If I feel that people are less empathic these days, and they saw this answer and they immediately assumed that I was trying to trash Peter Levels and Mark and everyone that has success, and immediately didn't think twice. He kind of mentioned my post because he knew, in my opinion, I think he knew that he would get some traction out of this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was not his idea, but that was the consequence. And I mean, I just don't like this type of way of interacting with the world. And I'm getting really tired that these days the algorithm decides what we consume and what we produce. That's really frustrating, right? I want to see the people that I follow. I don't want to see the people that the algorithm thinks I should follow or should see. And these days on Twitter, and I will stop the rank, not the rank, the rant. I'll stop the rant in a moment, but I have 5,600 followers, 616 followers, which is not bad, right? It's a decent amount. But every time I tweet something and I put my heart into it and I really try to write something cool, maximum I get is like 300, 400. So I get to 10% of my audience. Is this fair? I don't know. I find it weird. I find it weird that the traction has reduced so much. But in the same time, for people that comment these more polarizing, simple, controversial ideas, they get tons of views. Now, let me get into why I think that the shotgun approach or the 12 on 12 approach is missing some crucial information. So, if you build something and if you have no place to share it with, it's impossible to have success because people are not seeing it, right? So you will always need an unfair advantage to share it, right? And of course, as I mentioned in the first part of this episode, you can use forums like Reddit, you can use these ways to launch a product. And that works in I believe in only one situation, which is you catch the wave in the right exact spot. I love this analogy, the analogy of the wave, right? Like the surfer that is trying to catch the wave. So the wave is the market, or rather the attention of people, where the attention of people are facing. So with Pod Squeeze, I believe that we're really lucky because we launched Pod Squeeze in the exact spot to catch the wave of ChatGPT. When we launched Pod Squeeze, ChatGPT the API was just launched maybe a month ago. And we thought, okay, how can we use this technology to solve an old problem? And the problem that I had, which was, in this case, for writing the show notes for podcasts. And we launched it and we shared it. And since all the attention was facing ChatGPT, it just took off. We got some traction because we posted on Reddit, we posted on these things, and people look at it and they were excited about it, and there was this curiosity that triggered our traffic, and the traffic increased. Now, after a few months, by the way, that traffic, that attention started to reduce, and we had to build SEO and build all of these kind of things. But I believe that the 12 on 12 worked for us because we catch the wave on the right spot. Now, what's the unfair advantage that an audience brings? It kind of opens the place opens the space you have to catch this wave. Maybe the wave would have passed, but since you have a huge audience, you can easily catch it back. And for us, for instance, when we first launched Flarecut, which was our product after Pod Squeeze, which is a faceless short creator using AI, there are other products exactly like Flarecut with making a lot of money, with a lot of interest. But we couldn't get this interest because the wave had already passed. Now, if we had a big audience, maybe we could have just catch the wave. Or if we have a big audience, maybe we can create this wave. That's even possible. I believe that Peter Levels is getting to that situation now. One other thing that I noticed from Levels is that First of all, he was telling, and because we're having this discussion here on Twitter, and he said that he had only, quote unquote, only 3,000 followers on Twitter when he first launched Nomad List. First of all, 3,000 back then, when the traction was much higher, it's not that bad. It's quite good. If you already have 3,000 people, or maybe 1,000 people tweeting about you, speaking about you, and if they are the right people, it can already give you some advantage. Okay, so anything, even when I launched Podsquiz, by the way, I had already 1,000 or 2,000 followers on Twitter, and that really helped. It helped for when we did our first product hunt launch, because I used these people to get to the top 5. So it still helped. We still used the audience. It was not out of zero. So the audience, the distribution works, and the bigger your audience, the bigger your distribution pipeline, the better. And these days, where again making products, it's so easy to make products. It's so simple. Even if you try to catch the wave in the right time, for sure the wave will be piled and filled with other surfers, because everyone can make the product as well really, really fast. Okay, so that's my opinion, and that's why I believe that these days the 12 and 12 approach works, but one should also think about their distribution. One should also think about the audience first approach, which is a kind of another way to start a product that was very common as well back when I started. And these days, I think it's even more important. If you have an audience, especially an audience with people that can be your target customers, awesome. Like the example of Tony Dean, for instance, it's a great example. When he first started, he started by just growing his audience. How? I don't know if you remember, but he made this Twitter header to be interactive, where people could just comment on his tweets and like play the snake game on his Twitter header. This brought him a lot of traction, and since then he has been building a lot of products that most of the target is overlapping with his Twitter audience. It's brilliant. It makes a lot of sense. So that's why I don't understand why people say that I'm complaining. I'm not. I admire these people. They are able to create amazing things. Now, I think they should be open about it. They should understand that what they're doing is great, but it's crucial. Even Levels, all the products that he launched since Nomad List, a lot of them failed, but they were content. All the products, he tweets about these products, he gets traction, and he gets likes and followers. All he does with his products is not only to get paid, even for the ones that failed, they are creating content for his audience. And that's my opinion on this. So I'm sorry if I made people upset, but I'm just being honest. And of course, I'm open-minded enough to understand that I might be wrong, but I never mean any harm, or I don't want to again diminish anyone's achievements, not at all. So yeah, that's the episode today. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Do you think that distribution is really important? Do you think it's or do you still believe in the 12 on 12 without any type of distribution besides Reddit and so on? Again, share your opinion in the comments. If you want to follow me on Twitter, the handle is WBTiago. And I will release another episode next week, next Monday. Until then, keep shipping.